Hi everyone, so last night on a Season 8 PTR I tried something pretty hilarious. I made a new Spiritborn, went to Penitent difficulty and decided to never equip any new items. So I just had the starter weapon and like the starter scraps of clothing that you wear basically, and decided to see how far I can get with this, with just using the boss powers basically. And it turns out it's actually pretty cracked. As you can see here, I'm basically just one-tapping everything, and that continued for like at least half an hour or so, all the way to like level 25, at which point I kind of got bored and then logged out. But I also fought like the Blood Maiden at some points, and even that was like pretty easy still. So you might have seen some other clips from people trying to use those boss powers with like Sorg, for example. There's some pretty cracked stuff going on. In general, there's a lot of crazy stuff you can do with those boss powers, and they're kind of like overshadowing a lot of the actual builds that classes have. So class fantasy is kind of like down in the gutter right now, because those boss powers just kind of carry you really hard. They are pretty overtuned, to be fair. And I do expect you're going to see some significant nerfs. But just as a demonstration of the power of this, you can see this here. Even at level 20, with my level 1 gear, I was able to just take down a Blood Maiden in, seconds, basically. Very easily. So the main power I used here was Cinnarod's Flames, which gives you a burning effect when you use a mobility skill. Now, the Spiritborn has the advantage that every time you use one of your basic skills, they're all tagged for mobility, besides Thunder Spike. And then you also have Rushing Claw and Soar. You can also progress with that. But you basically just have to spam Thrash in that case, which also gives me ferocity, and it also teleports me to the target. And then every time I do that, I get this burning effect here. And you see that's 1400% weapon damage, which is like a pretty insane value. Like most core skills don't get anywhere close to that, even with mini ranks and other like aspects and so on. So there's like a really high base value here. And then I had some supporting powers here, like the Andariel's Flaming Skull, which also gives you another burn effect. When you hit enemies after proccing your main power, which you do all the time. It also gives you a multiplier for all of your dots. So that is really nice. And Andarius is also kind of like a big contender for one of the most OP things that is about to get nerfed. But in this case, yeah, Cinnarod's was kind of the main carry, and then Andarius helping out a little bit. I had the Execute here, which helps as well. And then we had also this here, where we spend our resources, and then we boost the effect of the main power with the Avarice power here. So that was kind of the combo, and I tried out a few different little things that I changed, but it was kind of like the main thing I went with. And yeah, the result is like going like this. And this also leads me to the point of like, what do we actually expect to happen here with Season 8? Now, I said that most likely stuff will get tuned down because it is kind of cracked. I also tried, for example, a Spiritborn in like Pit 100, which is now extremely hard. Like most builds will not get anywhere close to Pit 100 in the future, because they rebalance the difficulty of the game, and especially the monster HP is scaling up a lot more, and also the monster damage is scaling up a lot more. So in general, getting to 100 is going to be quite the achievement. And I also use, for example, the Ashava power with a Noxious Resonance build to actually do that. I can talk about more in another video. But I made a setup for that, which looks to be like basically one of the strongest Spiritborn builds out there right now. And also like it's just a pretty strong build in general across the other classes. So that is something pretty promising here. But on the other hand, it does feel a little bit weird that we get this season and we have these like new powers and then have these like kind of goofy looking effects. Now in this case, it's not that bad. We just have these like fire novas popping up sometimes, but some of these things look pretty hilarious. So just as a little example here is like this Wandering Death Beam that circles around you when you channel Dance of Knives, for example. And there's like other stuff that just kind of like looks way too weird, and everything is gonna be like very flashy and so on. And I did see many comments on my live streams, for example, when I tried this stuff, where it was just kind of like a bit like alienated, I guess, from like what the game is usually about, which has like really strong class fantasy and so on. And we're kind of moving away from that really quickly with these kind of powers. So I do have some concerns here, and I think that something needs to be done about how impactful they are. I think it would be better if the power was maybe a little bit more distributed towards the actual like player skills and the class skills, for example, and less just, okay, you have like this beam and it just kind of like rotates around you and it kills everything. Or you have some other powers like the explosions you just saw from the Spiritborn clip, where I just kind of like jump in and then these explosions happen and everything melts. So it is a bit odd. And from the people that are actively testing the PTR, and like, for example, some of the other Maxwell people I talk to and so on, it definitely seems like a lot of people are somewhat upset about, you know, how much these boss powers overshadow everything else. And I think that if left untouched, we're basically gonna have every single class with, you know, some builds that just try to like maximize one of these powers in some way. And this is gonna be like by far the best because the multipliers can just go really crazy in some cases. And the typical core skill builds, for example, can't really compete. And I don't really like that idea. On the other hand, I think it's also kind of fun that we can experiment with some of those things and actually try to make a build around them. But I feel like the gap is kind of like too much. And we probably haven't even found all of the possible perfect combos that it can make. The PTR is just up for like a few days now. People are just kind of getting started, and there's 100% some stuff that's going to be, you know, under the radar until the season actually goes live, and then something really busted or potentially even really bugged comes around and this is gonna, you know, blast for like a pit 150 again or something like that. I can definitely see that happening with like just this like a number of different powers and the combinations you can make. It's very likely something is gonna end up being pretty insane. So we'll see. But yeah, for now, this is just like a funny little, you know, experiment I did here and I want to share with you guys. Let me know what you think about it. Let me know if there's anything you want me to test specifically, or if you have done anything like crazy on the PTR or had some ideas at least about, you know, any kind of combos or some builds. So I will check that out. I'm still like live every day on the PTR right now, trying this out, and we'll see what comes out in the end with the final patch notes. It's always important to keep in mind that usually there's a relatively big change from PTR to the live server. We have seen other PTRs as well in the past where stuff was like pretty out of whack on the PTR, and then Blizzard actually did a pretty good job at fixing stuff like for, you know, the actual release. So I'm positive that they're gonna do the same here and that they're gonna try to find like maybe a good middle ground or something like that. But for now, I do have to say this is a little bit too much at the very least. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed my little video here. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you guys next time.